those. As an administrative matter, we have a notice. All county offices will be closed Monday, October 8th, 2018, in observance of Columbus Day. And we had two letters, one from the Department of Commerce, Andy Fish, Senior Director, Office of Financial Programming. It says reallocation of Maryland state ceiling. Of course, every year on the 1st of January, the Department of Commerce notifies each jurisdiction of their share of private activity bond allocation. And based upon the issuance reports to the department, the remaining unused amount of the Maryland state ceiling for private activity bonds for 2018 reverting to the Secretary's reserve is $260,863,959, and we certainly could use a little bit of that. And also from Davis Moore, Sheraton and Associates, proposed a site plan for the lands of Morgan Creek Land Holdings, LLC, on Morgan Neck Road in Chestertown. It says that letters to inform the citizens in the area of this project that they have. Morgan Creek Land Holdings, LLC, is proposing to use the property for manufacturing of concrete and ceramics, contractor's yard, which are permitted uses in the industrial and industrial critical area zoning districts. Anyone have any questions or would like to see the letter, full letter, please contact the County Commissioner's office. We have 3 sets of minutes. Seconds, properly moved and second, the aforementioned minutes be approved as submitted. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously. And we have one here. Report out of closed session on September 18th of this year. Commissioners held a closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals in accordance with the general provisions of the Annotated Code of Maryland. Topics discussed with individual suitability for employment, and the reason for closing is details regarding a specific personnel matter, and no action was taken in the closed session. We will cover the other things. Oh, we have one. We have an application for a special Class C license for beer, wine, and liquor from the Rock Hall Volunteer Fire Company for the National Wild Turkey Federation banquet in the Chesapeake Room of the Rock Hall Volunteer Fire Company on October 6th of this year. Since this is an application for a liquor license requiring a public hearing, this is that said public hearing. Does anyone have any comments for or against the aforementioned application? Hearing none. Seconds. Prior to moving second, the application be approved as submitted. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. Secretary Ron, please. Well, welcome to Kent County, and glad you and your staff could make the trek all the way over here to the hinterland. Sure.
It absolutely is a beautiful day, and in fact, it's been very difficult. This is our third CTP tour meeting today. Went to Worcester and to Somerset, And here, and in every location, it's been, couldn't we move this meeting outside and just sit on the grass and enjoy the gorgeous weather? This is it. So I'd also thank you very much for this, the pin. I am valuing these as we had just...
Don't lose it by next year.
Believe me, I know exactly where this is going. So we'll get this going. So good evening. For the record, I'm Pete Ron, Secretary of the Maryland Department of Transportation, and thank you for inviting us here today to discuss the CTP, the Consolidated Transportation Plan, for fiscal years 19 through 24. Our regional planner, Ian Beam, is here with us, and anyone who would like a copy of that CTP that we're going to be discussing, raise your hand. He'll bring one to you. So I would also like to take the opportunity to introduce the MDOT team that is with me today. So from the Secretary's office, we have our State Legislative Officer, Tom Curtin. From MVA, we have our District of Field Operations, Rashad Johnson. From MTA, we have our Director of Planning and Programming, Holly Arnold. From MAA, our Regional Aviation Assistance Director, Ashish Shalanki. And from SHA, we have our Administrator, Greg Slater. And from the Maryland Transportation Authority, Executive Director, Kevin Rygrit. So first, I would like to thank you for taking the time during MACO to spend time with us to discuss priorities for the county. That is always incredibly beneficial to us to be able to have those conversations with you. And so for the fiscal 19 to 24 CTP, the Hogan administration is investing $16 billion in Maryland's transportation network, with 53% of the budget going to Maryland's roads and bridges. Above and beyond this funding, the Maryland Transportation Authority is investing an additional $3.3 billion in our toll roads and bridges. With Governor Hogan's leadership, we have completed 9 major road and bridge projects, totaling $462 million, and another 17 totaling $1.2 billion are underway. And that's just the major projects. We are investing in projects of every size all over the state. In 2015, Governor Hogan committed to fixing every structurally deficient bridge that was identified at that time in Maryland. All of the 69 structurally deficient bridges identified then have been repaired, replaced, or advertised for construction. We continue to deliver on the largest construction program in the state's history. MDOT currently has a total of 816 projects under construction, including airport, highways, transit, port, and bicycle projects at a value of $8.8 billion. Of those, the MDOT State Highway Administration alone has 524 projects underway, totaling $3.95 billion. And since 2015, MDOT SHA has improved half of all the state's lane miles. That's 8,500 lane miles of roads. Thanks to Governor Hogan's commitment to making Maryland's transportation network the best in the nation, our targeted transportation investments have spurred economic development in our state, and Marylanders are reaping the rewards of these investments. Governor Hogan's toll rollbacks have saved Marylanders $186 million since 2015. That's an average savings of $62 million a year, $8 million more each year than had originally been estimated. That's not even including the $46 million the governor is putting back into Marylanders' pockets over the next 5 years from making Easy Pass transponders free. And more people are using Easy Pass, helping the environment because they're zipping through the Easy Pass lanes instead of waiting in the cash lanes. With lower tolls, more people are using our toll facilities, driving up revenues higher than expected. The Hogan administration has been able to save Marylanders money and still invest in a new $765 million nice bridge, $1.1 billion on I-95 express toll lanes extended to Harford County, and the study of the New Bay Bridge crossing. At the Port of Baltimore, we are coming off our best fiscal year ever for general cargo tons, 10.9 million in fiscal 2018, while our container business continues to set new monthly records, and that's coming off 2017 when we handled a record 596,000 containers. And as Governor Hogan announced in January, the Baltimore-Washington Thurgood Marshall Airport also celebrated a new record exceeding 26 million passengers in 2017 for the first time. People continue to choose BWI, making it the best and busiest airport in the region. And Governor Hogan continues to direct us to think outside the box so that Maryland makes the most of our transportation dollars to deliver the best transportation network possible. We are addressing safety and congestion across the state, from adding lanes on roadways like Maryland 404 on the eastern shore to I-81 in western Maryland, and adding smart traffic signals on congested corridors from southern Maryland to our northern border. I will now be asking representatives of the business units to report on their progress and impacts on the CTP. And I might take this opportunity, which is unscheduled and unscripted. I do know there are a number of people here that want to express their opinion of a bridge crossing and a northern version of that is currently in the NEPA process. And so what we can do, whatever comments we receive about that today will not actually be reflected in the NEPA document, right? Since this is not a public hearing for NEPA, but rather a public hearing to discuss where investments are scheduled over the next 5 years. So I didn't want anyone to misunderstand what this was and what these activities are, but we will be here to have questions asked and to make comments, but I just want to make sure it's understood that the NEPA process and that bridge crossing is not the topic and will not be reflected in that process will not be impacted by any comments that we hear at this event. So with that, Mr. President, I'll be asking MDOT SHA to do their presentation.
We are certainly making great progress in Kent County, as we are all over the state. I'm happy to be here and kind of talk through some of the projects and efforts that we have moving along. We have about $12.3 million in funds for resurfacing across Kent County in our program today. We recently completed about 12 miles of improvements, including resurfacing along Maryland 213 and Maryland 292. We have completed improvements along Maryland 445 and 674, and we also have some planned improvements with the remaining fiscal year along Maryland 566 and Maryland 289. So lots of resurfacing happening throughout the county. We are currently in the closing phases of rehabilitating a bridge in US 301 over Maryland 290. It's been a big project for us. It's kind of in the last pieces. We're really kind of buttoning that one up. That is the last structure deficient bridge in the state system in Kent County. So when that's done, we will no longer have any in Kent County at all. So for your local route, also included in this year's budget is the installation of a virtual weigh station on northbound Maryland 213, just north of Galena. And that's great technology. It helps us really work with our enforcement partners on making sure that the appropriate traffic is along these roadways.
Oh, that's north of Galena.
Just north of Galena, and then there is one south of Galena already, on the southbound side. So we're looking to have that system fully operational by next spring.
Will they both be in the general sim area?
Yeah. So they'll feel that. And we've had a lot of success with those systems over the years where they give us really good data. And, the first piece is we're able to reach out to the companies that are kind of sending trucks up there and kind of tell them, hey, we're seeing you on our system and be able to use that as an education tool at first, and then kind of shifting that back.
Video surveillance and everything there? Okay.
So it's video tolling, or not tolling, but video monitoring, and then there's sensors in the pavement itself that give you kind of those virtual weights. So when we reach out to the companies that are coming across there, we actually send them a picture of their truck coming across there and kind of use it as an outreach tool.
And they justify if they're coming
Sure.
to a certain spot or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all part of the process. So if we reach out to them and then they'll give us some information, and it's a good conversation.
Okay.
Conversation. What about enforcement?
So that's kind of the next step. Once we get to that point, if we have companies that are kind of routinely moving where they shouldn't be, or routinely running overweight, those types of things, then we're able to work directly with Maryland State Police, their motor carrier enforcement section, and
Does the video only trigger when they go over top the scale?
it triggers when they're go up that. So that roadway sensor is all the way across the road.
Okay, so they can't avoid it by going on the other
yeah,
side.
so they don't have to actually get off the road. If they're traveling on the road, we take their picture in the travel lane and kind of work through that system. For your local projects, we're also providing Kent County and its municipalities about $5.4 million in highway user revenues and grant dollars, which includes the additional $486 grant, or $86,000 grant awarded by the governor recently. And because you came to see us at Mako and signed that paper early, we got your check 2 weeks early. So, thank you, and let me turn it over to Rashad to talk about some of the things that are happening at MDA.
Good evening. Since 2014, MDOT MBA has seen a 41% decrease in wait times by offering additional services through the website and kiosk, which in turn has given our customers back valuable moments in their day. We are proud to announce that the wait times at the Elton branch, which is the closest branch to Kent County, have been reduced to under 10-minute wait times for our customers.
Actually, the closest is Easton.
As well, and we figured that we were kind of right in between Easton and Elton.
Part of the county.
Exactly. Yeah. We're proud to announce that both offices are seeing an under 10-minute wait time. So you guys are very fortunate.
Citizens of Kent County love the bus that you guys send here. They absolutely, those folks on there, I think those folks on there are even different than anybody working in the main offices. They're just a different character. I mean, they're
absolutely, they take pride in that bus, and that's
very nice.
That's our flagship. So yeah, they take pride in that bus. It receives 100% customer service rating. So thank you. I'll pass that on to the team. We also have the new online pre-check that allows our customers to start a driver's license or identification card renewal online and schedule an appointment at a time of their convenience to finish their transaction. In late 2017, the MDOT MBA began notifying Marylanders with driver's licenses and identification cards that they may need to provide new documentation to renew. This change is a requirement by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to maintain compliance with the Federal Real ID Act. To date, 1.8 million Marylanders have submitted their documents required for Real ID. Customers who are required to provide documentation can find a list of acceptable documents using the MDOT MBA online document guide by visiting mba.maryland.gov. In addition to being notified by the MDOT MBA, the agency recently announced the launch of its Real ID online lookup tool, which allows customers to conveniently check to see if new documents will be required upon their driver's license or identification card renewal. MDOT MBA Administrator Chrissy Nizer also serves as Governor Hogan's Highway Safety Representative. Our office has aggressively been working with federal, state, and local partners to develop solutions that will save lives on Maryland roadways. The 558 roadway fatalities we experienced in 2017 is unacceptable, and it's up to all of us to do our part to prevent impaired and distracted driving and speeding. We need to encourage safe behaviors like buckling up and walking smart statewide. To do our part in helping to reduce roadway fatalities, we've created the MDOT Traffic Safety Pledge to encourage our employees and all Marylanders to commit to safe driving behaviors. To date, more than 6,000 people have taken this pledge. I brought pledges with me today. It's my hope that everyone here will take the pledge to commit to safe driving behaviors.
Mr. President, if I could interrupt Rashad for just a moment, just to add that this pledge is designed to hopefully share with coworkers and employees of the county, school systems, your own children and grandchildren who are driving. And it's a 30-day pledge. It says for 30 days, I will do these things. And I think there's 9 items listed. It's basically follow the law. And what we're attempting to do with a 30-day period is, they say habits are formed in 21 days. So if we get people to drive responsibly for 21 days, we're hoping it will carry over beyond that. So we do have the pledges here, and again, they can be Xerox off. They can, again, use them with any and everyone that you would like to keep safe.
Well, we'll ensure, the administrator will ensure that our HR department will use these as appropriate.
So are you keeping track of this?
Actually, so you can go online and fill these in.
Okay. So it's not like they submit something, you guys see a speeding ticket or a cell phone on the cell phone, and you say, you sign this pledge. We're going to double down. We're going to double down on your...
That's phase 3.
That's phase 3.
We need all Marylanders to buckle up. Every seat, every time, day and night. In Maryland, nearly 43% of all drivers or passengers who were killed in a crash in 2016 were unbelted at the time of impact. Because unbelted passengers are not secure, they easily become projectiles in the crash, causing serious injuries or deaths to other passengers. Kent County has not yet developed its own highway safety plan, but we encourage you to do so or adopt Maryland's strategic highway safety plan. Our Maryland Highway Safety Office will be more than happy to assist you. Our efforts to reduce fatalities and save lives received a big boost when Governor Hogan recently announced nearly $12 million in highway safety grants, including $10,000 for the Kent County Sheriff's Office. MDOT MBA is committed to providing our customers with as much information as possible to keep them safe on the road. In another safety effort, MDOT MBA launched the first vehicle recall safety pilot program in the nation, funded by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in April 2018. Running vehicles against the National Safety Recall Database, MDOT MBA adds the life-saving recall messages to the vehicle registration renewal notices sent to Marylanders who own or lease a vehicle. Since the program started in 2018, 50,000 Marylanders who received the MDOT MBA notices repaired their vehicles, eliminating the safety recall issue. I'll now pass it on to MDOT.
Thanks, Rashad. MDOT MTA is happy to partner with Kent County through providing services, $1.1 million in operating capital grants to support the local transit operation in conjunction with Caroline and Talbot counties. So these funds are going to go to Delmarva Community Transit. Will provide replacement of 1 medium-duty replacement bus, a transportation development plan, so planning for the next 5 years for your 3 counties, and ongoing preventive maintenance. Additionally, we're providing $195,000 in funding to nonprofits that serve the transportation needs of seniors and people with disabilities in the county. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to MDOT MAA.
Commissioner, good evening. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're on the mic.
Good evening, Commissioners. The MDOT Maryland Aviation Administration provides a high level of service of convenience to our customers at BWI Marshall, Martin State Airports, and we also provide technical assistance and improvements of our infrastructure support for our 35 other public use airports as well. We are fortunate to be served by BWI Marshall Airport, a world-class facility that connects residents and businesses to the global economy. In January, Governor Hogan announced a new report which revealed that BWI Marshall produces a total economic impact of, $9.3 billion. That also includes airports and visitors to the region that generate and support more than 106,000 jobs. BWI Marshall is the 22nd largest airport in the country and also the busiest in our region. At BWI Marshall, passenger traffic continues to grow with new airlines and service to new domestic as well as international destinations. As Secretary Ron mentioned earlier, the airport has set 3 straight years of annual passenger record, and strong growth has continued in 2018. Through June of this year, BWI Marshall has set new monthly passenger records in 36 of our 37 months so far. The airport's capital program remains focused on improving travel experience to our customers while supporting Maryland's tourism and trade and business.
We also recently announced a 55 square foot extension to our Concourse A, which is the center of operations for Southwest Airlines. And this multi-year upgrade to the terminal building will include new concessions, new space for concessions, as well as new restrooms. These improvements will greatly enhance the customer experience at BWI. In early 2019, we will begin constructing the 5 new gates at Concourse A, and this will assist in replacing 5 that are being closed for major revamps and upgrades, to baggage areas, as well as other improvements for the terminal area. This will help maintain a Southwest during the construction activities, too. At this time, please let me introduce Kevin for MDTA.
I'm a retired pilot, so don't worry about that.
Who's your airline?
U.S. Air.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. As Pete mentioned before, the MDTA earlier this year permanently eliminated the $7.50 Easy Pass standard transponder fee for all new customers, saving Marylanders an estimated $46 million over the next 5 years. The MDTA is also replacing another 400,000 older transponders at no cost to their customers, the owners, and crediting the accounts of anyone who had already purchased a transponder in 2018. The governor's 2015 toll rollback plan also eliminated the $1.50 monthly account maintenance fee for Maryland customers, and in February of 2018, the MDTA unveiled its new Easy Pass Maryland mobile website, providing customers with an easier and more convenient way to access their accounts. That's available at easypassmd.com on your mobile device. Simply put, there has never been a better time to join Easy Pass Maryland. In fact, if anyone here tonight needs a Maryland Easy Pass, please come see one of us and we'll be happy to take care of you. I'm very happy to report that in FY18, the number of Easy Pass accounts in Kent County increased by 5.9% to 4,317. And now an item that I know a couple of people are interested in. As you are all aware, we continue to make steady progress on the $5 million Tier 1 National Environmental Policy Act study for a third Chesapeake Bay crossing. The 2 main goals of this study are to identify where the crossing will be located and how it will be financed. We very much appreciate all the feedback from the residents of Kent County, and all comments received to date have been very transparently and openly published to the project website, baycrossingstudy.com. For those who are interested, we also have these handout cards that actually provides information about how to get additional information about the project. That study began in January of 2017 and is scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2020. Speaking of the Bay Bridge, on November 4, the Bay Bridge will host the 5th annual Across the Bay 10K. Last year's race attracted more than 19,000 registered runners and walkers. It's one of the largest 10K races in the country and attracts participants from all over the Mid-Atlantic region. We welcome everybody here tonight to come join us for that terrific occasion. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Pete.
Thank you, Kevin. I tell you, I don't love driving over that bridge, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want to run over it, so I won't be there, Kevin, for that one.
Why?
And so, Mr. President, before I close, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Maryland Transportation Plan, which is the 20-year vision for transportation in the state. It's separate from the CTP. This plan is updated every 5 years, and it's required for us to receive our federal funds and also to meet other state requirements. There is a 60-day public comment period on that plan that ends on November the 20th, and the final plan will be released in January of 2019. I would urge everyone here, to go online, review the 20-year plan, and let us know if you think it fits the needs of Maryland's transportation system over that period of time. The reason it's important is it guides us as we're putting together the CTP. It guides us as we're making decisions about where we emphasize and we move forward on. So this really is an opportunity for everyone to have input into the process and the document that's going to do that for us. I also want to reiterate MDOT's commitment from all of our business units to continue the great partnership that we have with Kent County. And that means not just to meet at MACO or to meet during the CTP tour. It really means whatever we can do to assist, we want to do that. And so we want to keep those communication lines open, and we welcome on a continuing basis the opportunity to exchange and communicate.
Well, thank you.
I have a list.
So do I.
So maybe we'll ping pong back and forth.
Okay.
And the first one's easy. Whichever one is in charge of the SHA, has our new director who's replacing Greg Holsey been? That's you. Okay. So well, would stand up and introduce yourself to the whole community because we'll all be calling you.
My name is Ken Founder of the State Highway Administration. I took Greg Holsey's position. Give you a little bit of background about myself. I've been with the State Highway for 34 years. Look forward to working with you guys. Feel free to give me a call, contact me. I know I have some pretty big shoes to fill with Greg. He's a great guy, great district engineer, but look forward to working with all of you.
So it's Kent? Kent, okay. And thanks for introducing yourself. You're absolutely right. Greg was phenomenal to have in the county, and it's very easy to pick up the phone anytime, call him, meet him at his office. So I don't know if you'll fill his shoes, but I'm going to check to see how they fit. That's good. I guess.
Yeah, and just deal with highway also. For many years, we've had a desire for a bypass or an additional bridge across the Chester River to avoid a lot of the traffic going through our historic town here. That bypass, my understanding, has been on the planning books for a number of years. Is there any hope of it moving forward?
You say one word.
One syllable.
Yes.
Maybe then. It's one of these issues where just to give us to put this into context, we've identified at least $75 billion worth of needs within the state for transportation improvements. That project being one of those. As you can see from our CTP, we have $16 billion over a 6-year period to address those needs. And of course, during that time, this list is constantly growing. So it's not to say that your request is unreasonable or unnecessary. It's saying right now the likelihood of programming what is the number that I've heard dollar-wise for that project?
The alternatives range from 100 million to 300 or 400 million.
Yeah.
It's 5 and 6, depending on which.
Yeah. So just to say, this is a very difficult situation for us because as we had talked at MACO, this year we were fortunate that we were able to hold the CTP together and not have to remove any projects from it. So right now, we're not adding anything to the CTP for the 2024 year. So I can tell you for 2024, the answer is that it is very unlikely.
Okay.
All right. This is in context with Galena. Is there any way outside of ag traffic, commercial traffic for farm equipment and so forth, farm trucks hauling grains and so forth through Cecil County, is there any way to put an absolute restriction if they're not going to Galena? There's no reason for them to come through Galena, these heavy trucks. No reason. Because if they're not delivering in Galena, they can go up to 291 off the 301 corridor and use 291. That would be less maintenance for the highway funds to have to keep rebuilding those roads in Galena and so forth, to actually put it on 291, which would absolutely bring everybody who needs to come to Chestertown for deliveries. We have one corporation here that probably sends out quite a few trucks, but go up 291 and jump on 301 to make it useful. Centerville shouldn't have to deal with this issue. Chestertown shouldn't have to deal with this issue. And little Galena sure don't. I mean, there should be a way to make that law in some way. I mean, make these commercial trucks go to that those different inspections. Is that possible?
So this is not an uncommon request that we receive from many counties. Queen Anne's is probably one of the most high profile. Our difficulty is that state highways, if it's a state highway, vehicles are entitled to utilize them. So without a change in law, we would have the ability to control traffic only for short periods of time that are directly affected by some emergency safety issue.
So,
because of law, we do have members of our 36th district delegation here.
Right.
yeah, so that
Your delegation, I can tell you, is quite vocal, and sometimes very, very vocal, in person and on the phone.
I think we all drink the same water around here, so that must be what does it.
They have good lungs.
Okay.
The other thing is get right down to it. Obviously, you may have seen some of the signs around here about another bridge across the bay coming to Kent as a terminus.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we've written in our citizenry generally are opposed to that.
Mm-hmm.
100%, but for the most part. So I realize it's still in the preliminary stages of planning, but we'd like to reiterate that our sincere opposition to the crossing to Kent County.
And the voices of both the commission and elected officials, other elected officials, and the public has been loud and clear, and I know it's been heard within this process. It is premature, and in fact, we are prohibited from actually stating an order of the current 4 alternatives. So all I can tell you is that that Kent County has been very vocal in their opposition for the bridge to land in Kent County. We definitely have heard it. In fact, we were all trying to stiffen our back as we were coming into this meeting because we expected to hear that again tonight.
He gave you the easy question when he told mine.
He did, yeah. So all I can say is that we have a process that we have to follow if we hope to ever be able to use federal funds in addressing the needs for a crossing. So we have to follow the NEPA process. It's very much laid out as a process. It describes what we can do in what phases. We are doing that now. So we have been taking input, and you can, as Kevin Reigert had mentioned, you can go to the site, you can see exactly what people have said, and you can see if that's representative of your feelings. But we are in that process. It is at least a year and a half away from a conclusion. And I don't know when, do we have a projected date for a preferred alternative?
This fall.
So this fall.
Yes, this year. November.
Okay. So this fall, we will be releasing a preferred alternative.
3. Yeah, a range.
Okay. So it's the range of alternatives. Okay. So that's different than a preferred alternative. When will we have a preferred alternative?
Next year.
Winter of 19. So basically a year from now. When that would be national choice. So,
Well, I'm going to ask you one question, but I'm going to ask you in different segments.
all right.
So it's going to take a little bit. As you know, I'm sure you know, we asked the Attorney General along with Senator Hershey and us as commissioners' body about the 4407 law that's written, and how his opinion was that we as Kent County commissioners or Kent County citizens actually have a veto power as a single county and not 5 out of the 9 and so forth. Is there going to be any legislation that you are aware of to try and overturn, I mean, it's happened in the past, to try and overturn that authority from our body of citizens? And
Not from us.
okay, she's looking all over the place. All right, well, so
She's MTA, so it's actually.
and
So
we're
Holly doesn't care.
okay. So we're doing this actually to be on for us to be on public record as well, even though it's not for the NEPA study, it's actually for our benefit here. It came to my attention a few weeks ago that there are tens of thousands of ordinances, possibly live ordinance, in the Chesapeake Bay up in this corridor of the bay because of Aberdeen Proving Ground in the last 100 years or plus they've been there. Is that a reflection on perhaps driving poles in the ground out there in order to put a bridge up? Know anything about that one? Okay, we'll have to get you some of that. So that doesn't even go into the study to say if it's safe to put the bridge there. Is that what you're saying? If there's live ordinances in the bay and on the different areas that you're doing, that doesn't play a role in the study?
Those will be that becomes part of a design process in which you would look at it. Because I can tell you that's what we're doing. We've already done down on the Nice Bridge, is that we have had to have studies done because of expected live ordinance within that area, and so that was done after a choice had been made about moving forward with a replacement of that bridge.
Don't go into the cost analysis of the potential location, having to remove this many ordinance from the. I mean, study I got, the information I got was tens of thousands potential.
We have stuff everywhere, right? So it's, I don't know. Melissa, what do you know on that?
Certainly, looking at UXOs upon choosing a location, but keep in mind, as part of this Tier 1 study, we're looking for a 2-mile corridor that would give us area to address UXOs that might be in place.
I can also just follow up on that to say that as a practical matter, MDTA has no interest whatsoever doing construction in a circumstance where significant risk of unexploded ordnance exists.
A more basic question deals with the purpose of an additional Bay Bridge crossing. Why? Is it to move, realizing that the current structures are over capacity? Any new structure will also be over capacity. So is the purpose to move people from the western shore to the eastern shore? If so, vehicles are only one mode of transportation. There's other modes of transportation that could come into play, even if those are going to the beach. Realizing that in our society, in this country, we're in love with our automobiles. And it's hard to get us out of automobiles. But maybe since you have a lot of planners, very smart people, maybe they can figure out a better way rather than building another bridge, which still will not really solve the issue. Just a suggestion.
And I guess my final statement on that would be, if you ever watch Facebook, and I'm sure you do, just because of the Bay Bridge, it's very appealing all year. The issues in Queen Anne's County with traffic. It's not Ocean City traffic that creates the problem. The additional 40,000, I believe last study I heard, the additional 40,000 vehicles a day that are potential to come out of Delaware on the 301 corridor is part of that problem too. And we're talking 20 to 25 years, I guess, before a bridge will ever be built on this side by the time you get this done. So for the next 25 years, the 301 corridor heading to D.C., 95, whatever they're talking about bypassing, that's going to be an issue for 25 years. These citizens I read on Facebook and hear, they are so mad all the time because of local traffic and so forth. They can't go anywhere all year. So the additional, to me, the investment would be there. Would be the third span. I've been informed that the older bridges, at some point, one of those could potentially need replacement too. So if you got two of these things happening at the same time, from my perspective and the citizens of Kent County, there is your place for even a third span to come across because you'll already be there doing all the infrastructure work. Additionally, you already own the infrastructure in the center. So it's just a matter of widening lanes, putting overpasses there. And fixing the problem that the locals down in Queen Anne's County that these folks get to hear all the time is there. So I understand having three places to put a bridge and for federal money and so forth. I'm just asking you to make sure Kent County's not one of them.
Okay.
Very quiet.
Yes. Well, I was just going to say, since the president had asked the question about what's the purpose of this, and you're absolutely right that we will be looking at additional modes of transportation available. But what the number one reason to deal with this volume of traffic, as you say, the existing infrastructure is for 5 to 6 months out of the year significantly over capacity. So the problem we've got, it's a safety issue, and it's a safety issue going both ways. It's a safety issue on how we can move people that need to get one place or another depending upon events. And right now, you cannot reliably cross the bay on the infrastructure we have when one relatively minor incident occurs on that bridge. 8-mile backups are not unusual. So there's safety involved here as well as convenience. So those things are being looked at. As you said, I'm quite sure given the cost of this project, it's not going to happen soon. But there are so many times I've heard remarks about, well, if we'd have only done this then, we wouldn't have these problems now. So I suspect this is going to fall into that category, is that when something is finally done, the question will be, why hadn't we done it sooner?
And the one thing is your easy pass lanes. The governor's finally stepped up and said that he's going to get rid of cash and make everything easier. That alone is going to significantly change the whole pattern of traffic on Bay Bridge, and if you could do it in other parts of all of the state. I mean, it's done in other parts of the country, and it's very effective. Very effective. Somebody knows they're not going to get their license back because you're going to tag their MVA situation. They're going to pay their bill regardless. Otherwise, they're going to pay it when they want to renew their license or whatever. It is what it is. But to have people scale down from all those roads, down to 7 lanes to pay money in today's society is just, I think that is way past due. That should have been done 20 years ago or 10 years ago as technology's changed.
Well, we are looking for short-term solutions, and I've asked Kevin Reigertz to bring a team together to look at what can we do. One of the issues we are fighting everywhere is Waze, and Waze will take you any way that people share with the rest of the universe as a quicker way to get through with whatever's occurring on the main roads. And what's happening is it's taking significant traffic in front of our schools, in front of our parks, down residential streets that traffic doesn't belong. But that is it's out, right? The genie's out of the bottle, and we have no way to control what they distribute to the members of their, app?
Just get control of Google since they own them.
And and even before, this is in reference to Queen Anne's County, it'd be beneficial to go ahead and put infrastructure such as overpasses. And I'm not a Queen Anne's County commissioner, but I certainly will support that kind of project, to put these overpasses everywhere needed in order to keep that traffic out of flow, because even that's going to take you years to do. But if you start that process now, 25 years for a bridge, it's going to happen. But if you plan in kind of reverse, of a bridge and add the overpass and so forth, Queen Anne's County traffic, a lot of that would be eliminated, at least for local citizens and so forth, which is half of what you see on Facebook. They rip you guys all the time.
I'd like to say that we do have some other invited people, some of our town officials here. I think Mayor Sutton and plus 3 of the councilmen are here. Also, we have Linda Kuiper, as well as former Chestertown Mayor Elmer Horsey here, John Carroll and Harry Pisapia from Millington, no, Galena. I'm reading down the line here. And from Rock Hall, Mayor Brian Jones. If they would like to have ask any questions or make any statement at all.
Commissioner Horsey is on the State Transportation Commission.
Yeah.
Mayor Horsey.
Mayor Horsey.
Well, commissioner, no, he's a state highway commissioner.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yes.
John?
I would like to say thank you for the virtual aid station on the North Valley. So it really helps a lot with that because when we're only patrolling one side of the road, we're missing half the traffic. It's just, appreciate that. Let's hope that we have funds for more supervision.
And of course, the members of our 36th legislative district. If you have any questions, well, you have direct access to them. Yes, sir.
Right. So when we will not have the capability of all electronic tolling until we get our 3rd generation software control systems in place. We have already executed the contract for that. The vendors, we have 2 different vendors that are coming in and replacing our existing vendor. Are already on site and working. That process of moving from one to the other is roughly a year to 18 months long process. And what happens is if we were to say today to our vendor that is outgoing that we want AET right now, they have absolutely no incentive to work with us in a cost-effective way, and it would be outrageously expensive, and we would end up implementing a software package and control devices that would be replaced when this 3rd generation comes into being. So we are working as quickly as we can to accomplish this turnover to the 3rd generation. We will have a lot of capabilities at that point that we do not have today. And we're excited about what these capabilities are going to be. But again, it would not make sense to pay. In fact, I think we would, for all practical purposes, be robbed if we were to try to do that right now with an outgoing vendor.
So, timing now.
So the timing is, I think, part of my question.
Correct.
Would you estimate
So,
a year from now, a year and a half?
what do you think?
So full implementation of the new 3G contract is anticipated in early 2020. So that toolbox that we have at our disposal, that's the time frame when all of the available options under the new contract will be available to us. There is no specific timetable or budget associated with conversion to AET anywhere at MDTA, but in terms of capabilities, that's when that contract will go fully live.
Yeah.
That
calendar.
I think number 7 on the list
Cypress Street, yes.
I put Ken on the spot.
Yeah, that's okay. It's all good.
Steal your.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Major street site project, I'm not sure what it's called now, but my understanding is it's funded, I guess that's what I'm reading. So it's in line to have the renovation, going to including the sidewalks this year, is that correct?
2020. It's in design today, construction 2020.
It says, this year, 2018 here, I'm just trying to
Yeah,
understand the timing of it.
we got an advertisement date for November 7th this year. Bid opening is going to be December 13th. And a notice to proceed for the project is going to be February 18th.
February 19th. February 19th.
Sorry, yes.
February 18th or 19th.
Oh, February 18th of 19. Okay.
It's, we also have a meeting set up for October the 15th. We're going to meet with the local town officials and kind of explain where we're at in the process to make sure they understand what the scheduling is.
So, saying it could start in February, that's what I heard, of 19?
The notice to proceed. So that's when the contractor usually start doing things basically. So it should be, I'm not sure the time frame is a year construction time. So we start in early February, mid-February for this. Hopefully we'll be wrapped up in a year's time.
Okay.
And all this stuff will be presented at the meeting coming up, so that a little bit more detail.
Good news is funding is in place.
Only funded for construction, and so there's proceed. Worst case scenario, they're not going to be in the spring.
Thank you. One last question for me. We are, I think, as delegation, quite concerned with the possibility of increased traffic from the bypass window. State, I think I understand this. Keep monitoring that traffic once that opens, and look at the additional, to see if it meets what our expectations are, or exceeding, or, so we can kind of get ahead of this thing, instead of backing up all the way.
We will be monitoring it, but I would hate to mislead you to think we'll be in front of it, because as we monitor it, we will then know what that problem is. I know that.
My concern is that the numbers are much higher than what the data is that you can get. Going to be kind of working on a plan to
Try to handle it.
so that we don't get that bypass traffic through Canton. We're already seeing some decrease of. That's one of the reasons why the virtual station
Mhm.
it makes so important to look at what's already happening. But we don't really know. Some of what the information we got, we kind of agree with Delaware's perspective. They look at it as minimal. We don't really think that. So we're just trying to get ahead of this so that we don't compact an area between Kent and Queenie, so that we probably already have. Just to answer the question, yes, you're going to be doing numbers.
We will keep it on the radar as a potentially developing, problem for Kent and Queen Anne's.
And
Secretary Cohen and Miles and background with us.
my understanding is that big concern with in Cecilton, as well as Galena, the diversion of trucks.
Just one more thing on that. You know, if you look at what we've gone through, kind of talking about the issues of being ahead, are there any plans for you all as a Virginia Department team to actually meet with the locals? You know, you got Queen Anne's County, you got Kent County, obviously, with this issue. Are there any plans to keep us updated to get the citizens input and the people's input?
Yes, we have a meeting scheduled for October 22nd. To get over, it's the scenic byway in this meeting. From what I understand, there was a meeting that took place back in early March this year. Obviously, that will be out. Make sure that we're communicating now.
Just one other thing is, we're worried about Ken replacing Greg. He's done a great job. We've used him several occasions. He's been a great asset. Thank you.
Thank you.
He does that all the time.
Senator Hershey.
Thank you. This is going to stick on the same topic. I think one thing that delegation has learned is you never know when capital money is going to become available. And we saw that with the 404 project. And the benefits were that we had pushed for so long that we had some plans that were on the shelf somewhere, ready to at least get potentially started as we move around. Concern the delegation has is this is our third CTP. While we've seen a few completed projects in Queen Anne's County, we haven't seen any new projects, even if that meant into the planning, engineering, or design phase. So I think you're going to end up seeing a letter from us about this, if we all still understand that this is around. But in requesting, can we get to the initial stage of some projects, and as we see here, especially in the three counties I just mentioned, 301 really seems to be the issue that everybody's concerned with, what that volume is going to do with the opening of the bypass. And so, looking for what is the process to go forward to say, hey, how do we get somebody in for initial planning or design or stage? I'm not sure, right away, but just something moving forward so that money becomes available, or we see this problem is a lot worse than expected, you guys can, at least start to pull something off the shelf maybe and get started rather than starting kind of from ground zero.
So as a rule of thumb, design is roughly 10% of the cost of a project. And so, $100 million project means we need $10 million for design. Rule of thumb. You can go either way. And what we are looking at this year was that we of course had the large transportation funding package that had been passed back in 2013, and many of the projections about what that would produce were overly generous in what the expectations were as far as how much money would come in from that package. And what we've been dealing with since then, we had the big lump of funding that the governor had moved into projects, and 404, 113 were parts of that I say lump, that's not a very technical term, but it was the movement of money out of transit and into highways that the governor had announced in June of 2015. So we had the benefit of being able to take on a number of projects that were important for the Eastern Shore and for the statewide. Ever since then, we've been having to trim back the CTP as far as what we had anticipated for resources. The very next year, we had to trim $750 million out. The next year, we had to trim out $200 million. This last year, we were fortunate we didn't have to trim anything out, but we couldn't add anything in. And what we're experiencing are two issues. One, that gasoline taxes, the sales tax on gasoline that was put in place back in 2013, was expecting wholesale gas prices in the range of $4 a gallon. We're not anywhere near that, and therefore, yeah, thank goodness. Well, I know for all of you, you say thanks goodness, and I was very excited when I heard gas got up, or that oil got up to $73 a barrel, right? I was going, yes. So, but that's what's happened, right, is that the projected revenues from that sales tax on gasoline have significantly underperformed. And then the other thing we're seeing is that the efficiency of the automobile fleet is getting better and better, meaning higher mileage. So it's not even just electric cars. Electric cars are still like 0.1% of the vehicles on the road. What's happening, and I would suspect almost anybody in this room, that the most recent pickup or car you bought got better fuel mileage than the car it replaced. And if it didn't, I thank you for that. I like to urge people to consider Suburbans whenever they're looking for vehicles.
Sounds like to me you got a state gas card.
Yes.
And we're all contributing to your gas.
Yes. So anyway, that's what's happened to us, is that the resources available to invest into the transportation system we are in a very slight decline. At the same time, we are seeing record traffic on our roads. Record traffic. So that's what we're dealing with, and that's why this last year, that was a long answer, but I just wanted to explain, is that so to go out and try to put a bunch of plans on the shelf in case more money comes in the future, again, means we have to make substantial investments into those designs to have them wait for some possible date. So it's not as simple.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and I know from the federal level we seem to potentially might be seeing the more infrastructure project that may be on its way, and I don't know what type of funding that means for states. Yeah. I just want to make sure that whatever we can do or whatever you can do, wherever we can help to make sure we can get some idea of what might be the next projects that we can be ready for.
Yeah. We've been hearing federal fund, more federal funds now for a couple of years. I've gone from being hopeful to I'll believe it when I see it. We'll gladly take whatever they choose to provide, but so far I haven't seen any agreement at the congressional level as to how they're going to extend even beyond the current federal act.
One more thing, I'd like to also compliment your staff. Last week, the entire delegation went to the Eastern Shore Association of Municipalities, and Michelle and Heather and Melissa did an excellent job of explaining the NEPA process that's currently going to a lot of individuals, a lot of municipal leaders that were there. They fielded a lot of questions. But like I said, the information was great, the way they handled everything was great, and they gave a very good response to, regardless of how you see this interpretation of 4-407, why it is still important to go through the entire process as you're evaluating everything. Because some questions came up and said, if one county has veto authority, should you just stop spending money and looking at that? They had a very good response to that. So I know it's a very difficult topic, especially when you come here, that a lot of minds are very close to being made up here on what they do not want, but they did an excellent job of presenting that information.
Thank you.
I had one follow-up, long-winded answer you gave of the funding after not meeting or gas prices and higher longer years of use of vehicles. I don't know if you said it earlier. If you did, I apologize for didn't hear. But isn't it true that it's 53% of the revenue highways transportation money is for highways? The rest 47% is for transit. Isn't that true?
So 53% is on roads and bridges, and the remaining 47% is for all of our other modes. So there's investments in the airports, in transit, in MVA, and such.
Over here on the shore, we have, a lot of means of transportation. Get on the subway, pretty often. But I mean, it's kind of frustrating that we're the one, our only means is really vehicles, and out of the entire budget, only 53% really goes back into roads and bridges, which are important to us. That's why we have to fight harder than most, we don't have access to some of the other parts that other parts of the state have. We have to fight a little harder for that last little piece. But I think it's important that the audience know that 53% is really the number of what goes to roads and bridges out of the fund to begin with. It's not like it's that huge number that we wish it was anyway. 81 is better.
That brings me just one last follow-up to that, because I had it written down and somehow I overlooked it. One more question for you. The United Way just did a study in Kent County, and public transportation is one of the biggest things that registered high for lack of in not just Kent County, but a lot of rural counties, but Kent County is what they studied. Is there any way to get either supplemental grants or push through legislation even, or somehow where the state comes to local, we're not getting our highway user money back. Yeah, you call it an increase. We got about 10% of what we used to get, $3 million it used to get. But is there any way to somehow maneuver money back into the county to be able to give us a way to set up programs for transportation from Kent County, perhaps to Easton? Because DCT, it's takes so long to do everything. But if we could have more direct routes, and certain times a day, whether it's just 2 buses a day, whatever it is, to go different places as a mainstream for people who can't afford cars here, where transit is just very difficult, to set up a local funded system on a very, we're not asking for the world, but at least so our citizens can get back and forth, especially with the situation of the hospitals and so forth. It's critical that we get something going here, and
even within the county.
Even within the county. Get to the grocery store, things like that.
So the LOTS program is the local transit system support, and those dollars are distributed by formula.
So some of that goes into the DCT, perhaps grants that they're applying for. They're getting money through that.
Yeah.
Actually, your question is great. So one of the things that we're funding for this year is a transportation development plan. So that's looking at the next 5 years and attempting to answer that question is what should transit for DCT. So it's obviously in combination with Talbot and Caroline, but we can focus on individual counties, more inter-county transportation. So it's exactly the question that we're going to be looking to answer in that plan. Then the funding priorities from those plans can be used to ask for funding in the annual transportation process. So asking for additional funding going forward.
Yeah, because I had a guy kidding this morning with me. He's saying, it takes 4 days to go from here to Easton on DCT. 4-day turnaround time. I mean, I know he's joking, but even if you spend all day just trying to get point A to B, because there's only one service going back or forth, or maybe 2, whatever it is, to just make that program more sustainable to rural counties. I mean, Baltimore City, they jump on a bus, they jump on a train, they do whatever they want to do. Yet we're still paying the same taxes over here, and we're getting a small percentage back of what we consider highway user funds in that aspect. So I mean, just stripping us of the $3 million that we had to do other things within our budget was bad enough. But to sit here and tell our citizens, have United Way come up with a program that says, or a finding that this is one of the most important things to Kent County citizens. So I believe it's more of the state stepping up than actually the local government who are already participating in all these programs.
It is just very difficult to operate public transit in low population density. It's just a huge challenge to find that it starts with a plan.
And just as important, though. Hard to do, but just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have those conversations through the plan and looking at different alternatives. Transit, there's all sorts of new things happening and great times to be here.
And I realize projected revenues are not meeting expectations because of the issues you talked about. I hope the administration is not considering a increase in gasoline tax.
Not Governor Hogan.
Thank you. Because when this last round, I talked with some of the legislative officials, not our delegation, and I said, it's a regressive tax, and those that really suffer the most are those that are at the low end of economic ladder. And regardless of formulas, which we're very proud of, happy about here, we have a really high incidence of poverty in this county, and it really affects them. Less of their taking more of their disposable income.
Isn't the gasoline tax though tied to inflation? It automatically would get increased even without the legislature or the governor taking any action. Was that the way it was set up when that increase was put in several years ago?
So there is a CPI that applies to the gasoline tax, but there hasn't been that much inflation over the last many years. And construction inflation is actually a separate cost, which increases faster than consumer prices. So we fall a little behind there. But all I can tell you is if I were to talk to Governor Hogan about any kind of tax increase, the next secretary would be explaining to you.
Right answer. Does it, Jeff?
One of the things I've learned about Kent County is a very simple county. And one of the two things that I've learned is that, one, don't mess around with the hospital. Two, don't consider building a bridge from Baltimore to Colchester. Obviously, you guys aren't going to mess around with the hospital. So the question I have for you, so between now and the end of next year, when this first phase decision is going to be made, is there anything else that you need to help steer this possible decision to build the bridge to Kent County? Is there anything else they can do over the next or whatever? Are there any more public hearings, or is there anything?
So stay engaged, right? Stay engaged. Just be consistent. Be consistent with what you have been saying. And Melissa.
Our next workshop will be late January, early February. It will likely be an in-person workshop. We don't have a date or a time scheduled yet. Most to come and see new information, and we welcome honest input on the information.
Yeah, and we've gone to the effort of even creating a citizens from the commissioners appointed citizens committee to Bay Bridge monitoring. We call it.
Okay.
We're watching you. Yes, ma'am. Anyone has any other questions? Go ahead. Yeah.
Hershey from Kent Conservation Preservation Alliance. It's really nice that Melissa talks about the meetings that you're going to have, but when we come to these meetings, there's really nothing for us to engage with, because if you ask a question, the response is always pretty much the same. We don't know the answer to that question. Kent Conservation Preservation Alliance has put forth incredible amounts of information. We've talked about the historic resources, and we've talked about the fact that the historic resources that are online with Maryland Historic Trust are not up to date, and so you're looking at data that is not going to give you the information that you need about Kent County in order to consider it under the need. We've also sent extensive things forward about the prime farmland that we have here and what happens to prime farmland when it's exposed to a large population. Baltimore has a population center of over 3 million people. Kent County has a population of 20,000. If you put a bridge from Baltimore to Kent County, the induced traffic and the induced pressure to build and put in development will be astronomical. We put this forward. Neither of those very large papers that we put forward, but even a response like, thank you very much for sending this, let alone any kind of something that would acknowledge all the work that was done and that they were actually going to take that into consideration. And finally, 4406 under the NEPA, you said that you were following NEPA process, but under the NEPA process, in Title 23, 139, H1, it specifically says that if there's any kind of problem that is going to come up, that's going to prevent you from moving forward with whatever project it is, you need to resolve it. There has been no resolution of 4407. There has been nothing that's been put forward. There has been no talk with anybody. And we know now that although it is not a legal opinion, the Attorney General has come forward to say that in his opinion, we would have the right to turn this down. And yet, you're going forward without resolving this issue, which the NEPA process specifically says that you need to. And I understand that what I'm saying right here is not going to go forward, but I'm saying it to you, and I'm saying it to Melissa, that we are not being heard, that the meetings that they're holding do not give us any information, that they're just, we don't get to talk, we don't get feedback, we don't get anything. So they aren't really very useful. And Kent County has said specifically for 30 years, we do not want a bay crossing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Linda Kuiper.
Linda? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. There you are.
Thank you. So you're referring to the photo enforcement of speed? Is that, yeah. Okay. Correct. And work zones. Yeah.
So you're always working on the bridge all the time, just make it a work zone all the time. It doesn't.
Okay. Can you answer those questions?
Sure. So in terms of speed enforcement, what you said is absolutely correct. Under current Maryland statute, we do not have the ability to utilize automated speed enforcement on the Bay Bridge. During a construction period, during a work zone, it would be one that would be considered for additional enforcement using the state's work zone safety program. But at this point, we simply don't have that authority. In terms of the corrosion that you mentioned, I'm fond of letting people know that it costs more to paint the Bay Bridge in any given year to protect from corrosion than it did to build the original span. There are constantly projects underway to handle the corrosion on both of the spans of the bridge. It is peculiar geography that results in one span seeing different environmental conditions than the other. But the simple fact of the matter is it is a key priority of MDTA to ensure that both of those spans are fully protected from any weather contingencies. We can provide significant additional detail about the nature and scheduling of continuing ongoing maintenance specifically intended to address that issue.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to acknowledge a representative from Senator Van Hollen's, not Senator, Senator Cardin's, Van Hollen, I was right the first time, Van Hollen's office, and thank you, welcome. Do you have any comments you'd like to make? Okay. All right, good. Any other questions? None? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Hi,
Your name and
Oh, my name is Kate Liddy. I am here representing an organization called Stop the Spam. So I think you can understand what that stands for. The younger generation in Kent County, of who there are many, and who have made a concerted effort and decision to be here, a choice to be here. There are many of us who have made strongly worded inputs on your website as part of the NEPA process, as you requested. That said, what's not clear to me is how that input is being weighed in the decision-making process. I appreciate that it's being collected, and I've been able to read through other people's responses as well, but not how that's actually going to be used. Is there any weight that's given to that commentary, or is it sort of just a box that needs to be checked along the way?
Okay. So actually, I mean, it's all weighed, right, as to what kind of input we're getting regarding any one of these 4 different sites. And we are receiving different comments from different areas. And so it absolutely has an impact on the decision that is going to come out here in the next several months about what are the range of options. So I think you're going to see a reflection of input in that, and then obviously ultimately before we get to the preferred alternative. So I can assure you, whether you get a note that says thank you for your input or not, the information that's being provided is being reviewed and assessed, and it will influence decisions that are to be made.
Maybe you could get people doing the study to maybe just be nicer. Reply to people. Just have even if it's a generic reply, at least something that the people can get to.
If there's anyone in the room that provided a comment via the public meeting, via the website, and via email that did not get an acknowledgement of those comments, please let me know. I will investigate it personally, because MDTA has been focused on replying to each and every one of the comments that we've received. So if you didn't get a confirmation, you provided information, come let me know, and I assure you I will investigate it personally.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Yeah, one more.
Yes, sir.
My name is Frank Rhodes. Mr. Secretary, I'm glad you made the trek over here. I've been a Kent County resident for a long time. I have another option for the Bay Bridge. At first, I wonder how another span would affect our bay, another obstruction across the bay in another neighborhood, and especially the pristine farmland we have in Kent County right now. So I propose, why not keep the crossing where it is? Build possibly a bridge like they have in Philadelphia, 2 spans, one above the other, maybe high-speed rail next to it or something like that. Bypass the outlets, bypass Easton, and go down to Ocean City like it does right now. And also, you mentioned something about electric cars. I know a little bit about the auto industry, and within 5 years, there's going to be more electric cars around. You believe everyone is going to be producing. There's only 3 or 4 right now, but it's going to be a big part. You're not going to use as much gasoline. I have also heard rumors that at some point you might see a higher sales tax. Hopefully that will not happen. But if it does, and we have a bridge here, then a lot of people from Baltimore just want to go to Middletown and do tax-free shopping, and you lose all the business in Baltimore. That's one thing. Well, it would make sense. And with Kent County, have to build out the Queen Anne's House. I mean, I looked down there, that was farmland. We would be years that this whole area would just grow tremendously. A lot of people would have jobs, would need jobs. Growth would be phenomenal. Do we really want that? My opinion, I don't. So I'm a little bit forward thinking. And I have some knowledge of the auto industry. And initially I thought this would happen in the year 2050, but I have an article here that this technology will be here in 2025, and I'm talking about flying cars.
subject. But right now, it says, and I'm going to leave this article with you, that Japan wants to commercialize flying vehicles as early as the 220s through a government-backed campaign that already has recruited the likes of Subaru, Uber, Boeing, and others, and American companies. The flight of fancy comes into Japan's concern that its auto industry was caught flat-footed in ever-emerging global technology trends such as autonomous driving and ride-hailing. Globally, there is a growing interest in what is called flying cars that will enable such transportation services in the sky. And the reason I'm saying this is that I'm really trying to be forward-thinking that if this bridge will be ever to be built, and this technology starts, this is just a big waste because our use for a bridge is going to go down. And I think it could. So I just wanted to leave this with you.
I can let you know that Tierra Fugia is a company.
I know they were sold to the Chinese.
Yeah, to Geely bought them.
Excuse me?
Geely?
Yes, Geely.
Yeah, and yeah, they're prepared to start selling.
Unfortunately, it was an American company that's bought, but those Chinese are just going to go crazy on that technology. So I wanted to leave that with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? Bill?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much,
President, thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for your staff.
Good to see you.
And we'll be talking. Any part.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Here. Aisle.
No.
So we can occupy it. On drive one of those.
Oh, yeah, that's sorry.
Oh, yeah. Stay tuned. Right. Take care. Laugh, but it could happen. Thank you for your well. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken.
How you doing, sir?
Bye.
Same here.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
No problem.
I cannot.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to take.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were here in the room.
I didn't leave until Texas.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, you're down in Chester. Okay, Chester. Okay. Okay. Good. Good.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Good luck, honey. Okay. Okay.
Got a card?
Not very much. I legislative formulas from the state don't work for us.
Good. Thank you.
Here?
Really? But we probably, even us?
Delegation. I'm not going to share. Oh, yeah.
Well, he was just commenting that a lot of the meeting they couldn't hear even with us speaking. So.
Okay, good.
So I said no, we just.
It was a good meeting, I'll tell you that.
Right, yeah.
Set up for next time. Get here early.
No, we do not have any legislative initiatives.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for coming.
What do you mean you don't have legislative initiatives?
Nope, we haven't discussed them yet.
Oh.
Wait till after we win the election. You might have to discuss with someone
That's
what they're saying about you, that's for sure.
And if you guys will be here.
Oh, we'll
That's
be here.
true. Oh, that's right. That's why she's the constant. Tom.
Hope so.
Yeah, but his contract's are due.
Yeah.
His contracts are reviewed every Tuesday.
Yeah. We have to shake hands once a week.
See that?
We're good for another week.
Yeah.
We're good for another week.
He's got a pretty good shake too, so there's only some of us we gotta try and.
Here?
Down the middle.
Yeah, okay.
I guess we're done. You're done with us? All right, we'll see you. All right. That was fun.
Give Abigail my very best when you see her.
Will do.
Good to see you.
Absolutely.
Can we continue on with our meeting? Couch and just you? Okay.
And there's a couple board members.
Oh. And
Was Wendy in? Did they leave?
no.
Nah, we're going to do that another time. Yeah. How about your...
Wendy?
Yeah. See ya.
Thank you.
Did Wendy leave? Did Wendy Costa leave? Well, they are, but we have more things to present to them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
I told her that the legislators were up next and she left.
Oh.
Sorry.
All right.
Boy, Department of Transportation staff leaves. And
That's okay.
Thanks for staying, folks.
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
President Pickram, Commissioner Short, Mrs. Heller, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the FY 2020 Capital Improvement Plan, which is CIP. And I sent a number of documents, the first of which was a memo highlighting the areas that I would like to discuss, an overview from Dr. Lever, which was the FY 2020 CIP, a detailed overview and accounting for the security vestibules, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Also, some input from or some information about the school safety grant program, which is the SSGP. I have some more information about that. And then the supporting, bless you, the supporting FY 2020 application itself. I forwarded that as well. So with that, I will go through the information for you. I'd like to begin by stating that the FY 2020 Capital Improvement Plan was really an outcome of the strategic planning process that we initiated in 2017, and it set forth a comprehensive list of projects that we identified in the Educational Facilities Master Plan that I brought to you several months ago that you approved and also the Board of Education approved. And in that comprehensive set of projects, it listed the priorities for the FY 2020 CIP. And you'll see on Dr. Lever's memorandum that I attached, we It's no different than what I presented to you when I talked about the EFMP, which are the priorities. Priority 1 is the roof replacement for Rock Hall Elementary School. You'll note that we have some better numbers. There's some decreases and a little bit of increases, so I'll go through that as we discuss the projects themselves. But just briefly, you'll note in the memorandum that the roof portion for the local is, we're predicting it's going to be about $745,000, which you had in your budget as $766. So it's a bit of a decrease, but it's an increase for the state. The security vestibules, that is an increase, and I'll talk more details, so I'll just let you know that that's about an increase of $28,000. The Galena project, which is the targeted improvements, the targeted renovations, I have down here as planning for $320,000. You actually budgeted $360,000. We think we're going to need every bit of that, but we're hoping that we can bring it under budget by $320,000. And then the Rock Hall targeted renovation, there is an increase, and I'll talk about that in more detail. Essentially, what I wanted to highlight and what was noted in the memorandum is the reason why there are some increases are really because of some changes that were reflected in state law. House Bill 1783 transferred the funds for the entire construction contingency to the local Board of Ed, so that's where some of the increases are noted. Do you want me to go through? I don't think you need me to go through every single project, but I'm happy to do that. You let me know.
I think we have an understanding what they are, and I think we pretty much run budget cycle.
So I tried to include as much detail as you needed, just so that you can have a good understanding about that. And my purpose here this evening is to obtain verbal commitment from you with regard to moving forward. Of course, you don't have to submit your letter of support until November, and there's a reason for that. Because as we go through the process, there may be a number of amendments, and I wouldn't want you to submit a letter of support until we know all of those details. But I wanted you to see that we're not asking for anything that we haven't already discussed. But I would like to talk a little bit about the security vestibules, because I think that's a little bit of a change. And then I want to talk about the school safety grant program, which I've got some more information since when I submitted the information to you last week. There are some increases with the security vestibule, but we also have some more information that we didn't have before. We know a little bit more about the security vestibules in that it's already been tested out in a number of counties. Calvert County has already gone out with a design build contract, and they've awarded it to a firm. We've been in contact with them, and we realized just from the market cost analysis that we were slightly under budget with what we initially thought we could build the security vestibules for. But I think I would just really like to emphasize, and it's noted in the memorandum that Dr. Lever also attached, there's just a bit of information we don't know. Because this is a new and upcoming project, there might be unforeseen market analysis that will drive up the price. For instance, the quality of the glass. Some counties are going with just regular glass. Others are going, looking at bulletproof glass. Yeah, I know. I have opinions about that too. And that's going to drive up the price. If you go with bulletproof glass, obviously that's going to be more expensive. If you go with impact-resistant glass, that's going to drive up the cost as well. I personally think putting in regular glass defeats the purpose of having a security vestibule. So I would opt to go for at least the impact-resistant, or obviously the bulletproof glass would be nice. We've also talked about, what do we want to use security vestibules for, and we've actually made some changes that will start next week at Galena Elementary with regard to the traffic of our parents dropping off and picking up the students. Because one of the things we talked about is their drop-off is in that new parking lot that we expanded, and that whole idea of what's the point of the security vestibule. So the new principal at Galena Elementary is changing the pattern effective next week. And the drop-off will be in the front, which will mean we'll have a better way of screening and putting the security vestibule in that front foyer. That's where they'll have to come in. And the buses will actually go around the side. We think it's actually going to be a better plan because there are some safety issues with regard to the buses being able to make that turn. They're having to, when they exit, they have to go further down the highway, turn around, and it's just a problem. But we believe that we can fit all of the buses in that circular area, so we think it's going to be a better deal. But going back to the security vestibules, I think that there's just a number of things that we just don't know about, and we're going to be able to test the market. We personally, I think that Going Design Build is going to expedite the project, and it's going to also control the costs, because we can set forth the design, we can work when we award it, we can set forth what we want. I think it's going to be a lot more economical than just going the regular design bid and then awarding it to a contractor. We're hoping that with Design Build, there'll be a number of local contractors that can be employed through the process as well, and that's where we would like to go. The going forward with regard to the school safety grant program, as you know, we were awarded $27,000. To my dismay, I thought we were awarded 27 and 11. It was the calculation that they came up with. The 11 is included in the 27. So that was a rude awakening for our school system. So all we got was $27,000. It has to be, it's a matching grant. And I wanted to assure you that the cost for the vestibule, since we took out Raw Call Elementary and decided that was a project that could be completed with the school safety grant program, and the security vestibule would fit very nicely into that. That's already accounted for within the monies that you already budgeted. So I'm not asking for now an additional amount of money for the school safety. I wanted to assure you that it's all included, encompassing in that. But we get a little bit more bang for our buck. So we are actually able to control the costs a little bit more because of the contingency, because of the design costs. I would probably be asking for more of an increase than $28,000. So that did help us. But I wanted to note that within the school security grant program, we are going to have remaining amount of about $4,500, and I guess there's a question in terms of what we're going to use that money for and how that's going to have to be matched. But what we've identified and what I've verified with Mr. Gorell is that we can use that to purchase the security management system that we want to purchase. We've already identified the product that we want to buy. It's Raptors technology, and it's utilized in Queen Anne's County. There's a number of counties that are already using that software. And the nice thing is they came up with a new module that we're very excited about, and it's called Emergency Management Module. And one of my biggest nightmares is that if we were ever to have a crisis, it's the reunification that has me the most worried, because we're going to lock down, we're going to have kids possibly in various locations of the school, and this particular technology helps. It talks to our student information system, and so automatically when we go into lockdown, we access the program and it brings up the roll for that period at that particular day, and so it automatically brings it up. The teachers can access it on their smartphone, on their laptop. They can account for the students. A message can be sent to the principal, and the principal will know right away how many students are missing. If they're accounted for in some other location, it'll account for those students. If by some, unfortunately, if a student is injured and we have to make contact with a parent, we can automatically access the parent's the student's emergency information, so that automatically comes up. It also helps with reunification in that if we bus our kids to another location, it automatically sends messages. These children are in this particular area, and we can call them out. So it is a really nice system. The whole system itself is $21,000, and that's for every module you can imagine. And that's all. I thought it would be a lot more expensive. So I would just note at this point, we're not really sure where the additional funds are going to come on how we can purchase the system. We have the $4,500 that can be applied to this. And the reason why I'm not here to ask for anything at this point, I'm just letting you know about this because Kent County was also awarded additional funds through the Maryland Center for School Safety. And we were told that that amount is $200,000. Now that amount is just for training. So we've already submitted our grant for that.
It was less to go towards vegetables, but they gave us $200,000
Yes.
to train people on a system of our size.
Right. So let me talk about that a little bit, because initially the way the calculation was, we were going to see very little money out of that amount. I had a long conversation with Ed Clark, and I said, we're a small county. We're not going to see anything when this is all said and done. Can't you just come up with a set amount that everyone is guaranteed that they're going to get, and then look at the amount for student enrollment and then add to that? So everybody could count on an X amount, and then there would be additional money for student enrollment. So that's what happened. Every school is guaranteed $200,000, and then our $11,000, so we get $211,000, which is a lot more than I would have seen, because we wouldn't even had enough to do the training. So the training grant that we submitted is not even anywhere near $200,000. What I asked him, if it would be possible, if I could move that into purchasing other things, like the software, like the door locking mechanisms that I would like to purchase for all. I'm trying to think of every way in which we can protect our students. And so if we have a security vestibule, that's going to be one way to have a window of opportunity to protect the school. If we have locking mechanisms, and I'm talking about individual locking mechanisms that fit on the door, and they fit into the floor, and they automatically provide a safe and secure area for our kids to be safe. And then we have the software in which we can communicate and keep our kids safe. He said he would take it to the sub-cabinet, and he would present that as an option. So I'm not here to ask you for anything. I'm here to tell you that that's what I'm going to try to do, is to maneuver those funds so that we can use it. I figured out, and I didn't even bring my folder with me, but I figured out how much it was going to cost. We had every single principal tell me, how many classrooms do we need door locking mechanisms for? How many, I'm thinking about media centers, the gym, thinking about every area in which we may want to lock down and protect our kids. And I figured out that we need about $30,000, which is not a lot of money to protect every one of our classrooms and common spaces in our schools. So I would like door locking mechanisms. I would like a way to screen visitors. The neat thing about this system is if you run their license plate, their driver's license through, their passport, any kind of ID that they can run through. We can determine whether they're sex offender, whether they have outstanding warrants. We can put into the system if there is a custody situation with the student, so that will come up on our check. The only thing that I'm concerned about is the time that's going to be taken from our staff to do that. So, that's another layer that we're going to have to look at.
Able to keep up to date, like if there's a custody issue and it's been fixed,
Yeah.
and you've still got somebody flagged,
Yeah.
you're going to have some unhappy campers come along.
Well, and you know what? Our parents are going to have to learn to be a little patient with us, because if we're going to protect our kids and we're going to put up barriers to be more secure, then it's going to take some time to run all of these checks through. So I think that we're just going to have to educate our parents and let them know that it's not going to be a matter of just walking in the door and coming in as quickly as they wanted to in the past. There'll be a holding place. We'll have to, we're going to have a little slot where they have to pass their driver's license. We'll have to take it into another location, run the check, and then we'll buzz them in and let them know if they're clear to come in. And if they're not, the software actually sends out alerts to the sheriff's department, to whoever else we want to send alerts to. I'll get an alert. The SROs will get an alert. Yep, it is.
Question I have: any thoughts? Any thoughts about as far as our windows are concerned?
Oh, the windows into the schools. We haven't really, well, I will tell you this. Within our first grant that we put in for training, I also added in for an outside company to come in and do a security analysis of our schools. So I think, and we actually got the name of a firm that does this from Carroll County, because Carroll County put it in their grant as well. We made contact with the company. They're willing to come to Kent County. Of course, we only have 5 schools, so it's not going to be a lot of time. But we added that into our grant, and we want them to come and tell us what else we may not have thought about, because I'll still have a bit of a pot of money that I can use for something else. So I don't have all the answers, but we're certainly looking at that. I know putting in bulletproof glass in every single classroom is probably going to be.
And plus, it's just not a viable option.
Yeah, I just don't know that we can do that.
Yeah.
But certainly, I don't know what the answer is. But I'm willing to listen, and I'm willing to hear what we can do for our students. But I think just the security vestibules, the door locking mechanisms, and the software is going to be 5 levels ahead of where we're at now. And I feel, I've shared it with the principals. We've shared it, talked about the ideas that we have, and they feel very good about where we're going. So,
come back to us when you have a path.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let you know that that's where we're at. And I'd like, I know I'm not asking for a letter of support at this point, but I'd like to at least hear that you're in agreement with us moving forward. We've already uploaded the application. It's due October the 4th. I don't think it's going to be as cumbersome as it has been in the past because of some changes that have occurred with regard to the process. And so I'm not sure that I'm going to have to do a formal presentation, since they actually came out to Kent County and reviewed our project and our plan, but I just would like to know that you're in agreement with the increases that I have in here, so that we can move forward, at least let them know that verbally the county is in favor of where we're going.
Yeah.
It is.
Right. And I think we even addressed that pretty much in the budget cycle to say that, we know what's coming in the future, so
yeah,
that's a positive. I'm glad Joe's here. I'm glad we'll see Wendy. Thanks for coming tonight. You talked a lot about security issues and things like that. I have something I want to chat, and that's dealing with the final segment of the IT upgrade for the backup system. That was taken out of the budget this year, so I think $84,000 or something like that. We've actually come to a consensus, I believe, that should be done. Our IT department is your master backup. We've spent 3 years, disaster recovery. We have spent 3 years, our IT department, working with yours to rewire, redoing all the infrastructure in the schools, and to not do that last upgrade, especially when you're talking all these other things you're going to add to the system as far as things that are going to need this. We would pay for that, and we would pay for that to be done. I think it's best to go ahead and get it done. I'm talking to the school board just as much as to Dr. Couch. I think you guys should revisit that and talk to us about that, and let's make that happen.
So what I would say is we did not take that out of the budget. That was never in the budget.
Well, the discussions had happened during budget time and everything else. I remember conversations in here that discussed that final segment, whether or not it was in your budget or discussions we were all having.
Right. Well, what I would say is in talking with Dr. Jacob, because I did follow up after brief discussion about that, and she said she never had that in her initial request. And so it was not, and she said she felt that there were lots of priorities that we were looking at. I mean, we've got a lot of things that, I've listed a lot of the things that we're still looking at. We're still looking at the restroom facility at the Kent County High School football field. We're still looking at, work on the field that we have to do. We've got additional leaks on the roof. I mean, we've already spent about $40 some odd $1,000 for repairing the Galena roof, and we've still got more leaks. So we got another quote for $15,000 for that. So I wouldn't say that it was an oversight on her part, but she said she felt that there were a lot of other priorities. So what I'm saying is, it's not that this school board or myself cut it out of the budget. It was never included in there.
That is fine. Well, my point is that our IT department is saying it is critical that this process happens in order to protect everything that's been done for the last 3 years. And they brought that to us. So I don't understand what I'm asking you is to ask us if that needs to be done. And our guys are saying it does.
And they'll do it.
And it can get done.
Yeah, so from my point of view, just speaking for myself, if you're offering assistance to help in a capacity, I mean, certainly as a collective board, I mean, I'm sure it would be brought back and then we would discuss that. So I'm not, but I think to Dr. Couch's point, there are numerous opportunities for support. I think, personally, for myself speaking, I would ask people to allow some time to go back and look at that.
I would agree.
I'm sure you
I would agree.
too.
Mm-hmm.
But to look at that. And,
right.
But certainly I would never turn down.
I brought that up a couple of months ago at your board meeting.
And we only, I mean, it's only because our IT department feels that it's vital. And our system here is done. Your system is still one step away from being there. And since it's great that you brought up the fields, I had extensive conversations with people this week at the Kent Goes Purple football game.
Yeah, I saw that.
And look, again, as commissioners, we support what needs to be done for the children's safety and other things. I've got the documentation of the cost to the process, what they're coming in with. And if it's something that wasn't done right at the beginning, we need to fix it. I mean, I feel that way, and I'm sure my colleagues. It needs to be fixed. It's not something you guys have to go back and sweat over to try and figure out if you can come up with, say, $64,000 to fix that field the way it should be fixed. Come to us. I mean, this is simple. Come to us. These are capital items that need to be done. We've always provided the capital expenditures for the system.
I would just add that and I'm going to speak for myself again, when I'm looking at opportunities, I'm measuring every step in inches because the needs are great. So we've been able to do a lot with what we have, but when I'm evaluating the information for myself and go back to our group, our collective, I'm going to take a look at 150 opportunities for us to better structure and support our schools. And so that would be just another piece. And I appreciate you telling us that, hey, this is an opportunity that we may want to support. I would just say that I would like to take that and look back and see where we are.
And
Because we may come back and say that's great, but by the way, there's this here, and we're going to discuss why.
Right, and we contributed. I'm sorry. Go ahead. We contributed tens of thousands of dollars a couple of years ago for Galena Roof.
Right. It was $60,000, and that's great. We experienced some more leaks, which we allocated and you all approved. We paid for it out of our fund balance, and now we still have additional leaks. And I know exactly. So so that came back, and that was the two. Well, there's two significant leaks that we've tried to do our best to patch, and that came back at about $15,000 for that as well.
But again, right. But again, to
change that would be significant.
But again, if we're going to take, my point is, if we're going to take from our students the funds that they need for the classrooms, which we've heard a lot about, make the request. We've never turned down a capital improvement project for the school systems since I've been here. I have not seen one capital improvement, and that's still a capital improvement. If it's fixing leaks on a roof, don't take it away from the kids. Bring it to us and get the approval.
Did I tell you we need to do new middle school?
Well, I've heard that. No, I've seen that in your study. We have to see that. But these little things that keep adding up to a few $100,000, which are detrimental to the school, bring them to us.
Right, and that's my point about saying that's why I'm not here to ask anything for the school safety security grant, because there is a pot of money that's sitting over here that I'm trying to move over here, and as soon as I get a determination on that, then I'll have a better idea. And I didn't want you to think that I was here for a handout.
And it's very disappointing that the state's only contributing $75K. That's really it's a crying shame, so to speak.
Yeah, all the talk behind it, and then they just $75,000. So that's going to be a big hit to everybody as well.
Right.
The last time you were in, I had asked for the numbers, and it was September 30th or 31st on kids. How many kids did we actually?
Well, we're going to present that to the board meeting at the board meeting, but as of
you don't want them to hear.
Well, they know.
I recommend that.
I mean, and I don't. We're in the process of, and I should go and get my numbers over there, because I anticipated you might ask me that question. But we're down 61 students as of 61 students. 87 have left the county. 57 went to another county. Let me go get do you mind if I go get it? Because it would be easier.
Wow.
$61.
Yeah. Yep. 87. Oh gosh, I had the paper and now I can't even find it. 87 left the county, so 57 went to another. Do I have in the paper over there, guys? Sorry. I did it. I wrote the wrong one. So sorry. That's fine. All right, so I'm sorry. 87 students have left. The interesting dynamic, I have it almost memorized in my mind. We had, we've seen over the last 5 years, 6 years in particular, that we've kind of leveled off on the number of students that we've lost to private school and gained from private school. This year we actually flip-flopped and saw more students coming in from private school than we lost. So we lost 7, we gained 15. We saw a large number of students go to homeschool. So we lost 11, we gained 4 from homeschool, 11, we lost 11 to homeschool. The largest drop in our student population happened at Rock Hall Elementary, which is pretty shocking. So we don't, you know, I don't have the specific numbers with regard to that. Yeah, we obviously, you add all these numbers up and you say, wait a minute, you're down 60. Where are all these numbers? We did get new students, but we have high mobility in this county. And what happens is, we've pretty much been able to, what we lose, what move out, we gain with moving in. This has been one of those times where we've lost a lot more than we've gained. And so I don't know. I think I can say that if they've left the county, reasons why they left the county, we can speculate. As soon as we look through and we know the names, we can probably tell you if they left for jobs and those kinds of things. But I guess there is some good news out of all of this. Is there was a bill that was passed 3 years ago that allows us to have a rolling average. And so you take the last 3 years, you add 3 years, and then it minimizes the amount so that you don't take as large of a hit. So when you look at a loss of 61 students, and you look at it over the last 3 years, I think it's going to translate into a loss of 30 students, which is a little bit better.
So they've got a double-edged sword for maintenance of effort to protect the school systems.
Well, it's for the state money. It doesn't.
Only state money that affects.
That only affects state money. So we'll see the loss from your end.
Well, just as you say that, I mean, in the school board, when you talk about this next Monday night, we have left the school system harmless against these kind of situations for years. The numbers haven't specifically gone up, but they had maintained, even with the loss of now, because the last number I had was 176 kids, and now we're adding 61 more kids to that. The losses, this one loss.
When we projected, when we forecasted our loss of revenue for next year, for FY20, we actually knew we were going to be down 20 to 25 students. So we projected loss of that. I think Jane might have taken a split between 20 and 25. I think she may have calculated 22. So that is in that budget forecast. Well, this is a lot different. So that will hurt us to some degree.
But maybe not. You can consider that over the past several years, regardless of the maintenance of effort calculation, that is not an entering argument as far as funding support from the county. We have maintained the amount of funding support at least level, if not more. We've actually become more because we've taken on more of the capital projects directly for you. So the maintenance effort is not really not an entering argument.
Capital does not I know you know this. Capital does not support operating costs. So the fixed costs are still there. It's still we can lose 30 students, 30 additional students. That doesn't translate into $1 million worth of teachers. So what I'm saying is
funding support that we provide the school board has been pretty constant, regardless of the loss of students. So it's incumbent upon the school board to allocate among all those things that you have to do. Not in our purview. We have to do. It's up to the school board to make those allocations.
Just as a number to be thrown out there, and the school board again, you probably did your numbers already. That's $982,000.
Yep, $14,000 a kid.
Which will, again, from my perspective, will stay flat. Will stay right where it's at. So the total dollars, will still stay the same. So, I for one will not take 900, just like I haven't done for the last several years. So that's a huge hit for taxpayers. So next year, when you look at this number added into the formula, right now we're fourth highest funded county government funded system in the state. That's going to go up again. We may be number 3 next year after this.
Per capita, and of course, and you have to, and we've talked about this when I've been at the Kerwin Commission, and we've talked about funding. The issue is when you're a small school system and you divide your costs into the number of students, your per pupil allocation is always going to be high because of the number of students. I mean, that's just the way it is.
And there's another reason why we're going to advocate with the state this year for more state funding, whether it's us and Garrett County together, like we talked about with the legislators, to try and drive home.
I can tell you where I'm at with that. I've already made contact with the superintendents from Somerset and from Garrett. I've already talked to the Department of Legislative Services about what I would like to propose when we begin our funding conversations about moving forward with Kerwin Commission. And one of the things that it's not going to fix all of the problems, but it's certainly something to consider is, should there be a multiplier for a small school system and small schools? I would advocate that is part of the problem, is when you look at, and I come to this from a different perspective, from a different state, where we had 89 school systems, we had large and small, and when we say small, we're talking about school systems with 150 kids. And you talk about their per pupil costs, it's significantly higher. But they can't consolidate with some other school system because we're talking about a school system that might be 60 miles away. That makes no sense. So in order to account for the fact that it's going to take more money, because your fixed costs are still going to go up, your costs to run the school are going to be the same whether you have 100 kids, 200 kids, 500 kids in the school, those fixed costs are still going to be the same. So the way they would account for that is they came up with a multiplier. And the multiplier then would say, okay, here's the amount of money, foundation money that you get for your school, but here's the multiplier that the state will add on top of that in order to account for the fact that you need more money. And it hits both ways, because look at Talbot County. Talbot County was looking at closing Tillman Island. So they're a larger school system, but they have a small school. So you could get hit twice. You could be a small school system and have small schools, so you get the double multiplier, or you could be a larger school system with a small school and get a multiplier for that school. So I think that
Commissioner Fithian had advocated several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We have fixed costs, just as you detail here. That, there's a certain amount just to do business.
Right.
That should be taken into account. Now, there's other things that go above that. So there should be a minimal level of funding from the state.
The other thing that the Kerwin Commission is looking at is the level of poverty. We've done, we've tried to make a greater push for having our parents complete the applications, because we think that there's probably, we probably have greater poverty than is actually documented within the applications. And we've been, right now, we're about 3% higher than we were last year. But the other thing that the Kerwin Commission is looking at is where's the threshold for the additional dollars that the state would provide for school systems that have more at-risk students. So in listening to that, to the work group, because our work group actually finished early, so I got to go listen to what they were stating, that work group was looking at 50% free as the threshold for kicking in layered supports. So there would be the foundation amount, then there would be layers that would be on top of that, and those layers would be kicking in if you had 50% free students at your school, and then, on up. So like 75% and then 100%. So I thought, well, let's go back and check and see where we're at with our schools. And just about every one of our schools fits that 50% free threshold. As a matter of fact, when parents fill them out, there's more parents that actually fit in the free category than in the reduced. So, so I think there are, possibility of those things as well. But all of this is just policy recommendations, and our legislators will take that and turn it into potential legislation. So, where and that's what we're doing now, because the final recommendations have already come through. Some adjustments have been made, and so we'll see what that translates to in terms of the final recommendations, then we'll go forward with the cost analysis, and then there'll be some chopping, adding, cutting, and then we'll see what the final recommendations are. And some of the, I look at the players that are on the Kerwin Commission. You've got Delegate McIntosh. You've got Senator King. You've got Delegate Kaiser. You've got Secretary Brinkley. You've got a lot of the Senator Pinsky. You've got a lot of the people that are they're the movers and the shakers, so I'm hoping that it will result in something positive. And I strongly will advocate for Kent, and I want Somerset and Garrett to join me in saying that we are unique. The way that the funding formula is set up, it's set up for large school systems, and we are kind of out there on our own. And I think there's something to say for us banding together as a group and saying, you have to help us. Because I'm going to be honest with you, we're in a very, very difficult situation as far as Kent. We're different. We've got a 3 whammy going on here. We're losing kids. We're considered a high wealth county, and I've had lots of conversations with the Department of Legislative Services about that, but we're also high poverty. So we've got 3 things going against us. And what I've said to them is if no one's going to step up and recognize the fact that we have some incredible challenges ahead of us, then, what I said is maybe we just have to bite it off and say, okay, split us up then. If that's what has to happen, then, we're reaching a point now where...
What's that mean?
It means split us up and consolidate us with other school systems, if that's... I know. And what I'm saying is I think we're going to have to be realistic about this because, for us to cut $2 million out of our budget, we're not going to have anything for our kids and our families to stay here for. I can cut out all of CTE, and that's $500,000. I can cut out all of PE and music, and that's $300,000.
Talking about the kids where we have the highest poverty rates and so forth, that program is a bad one to cut because that's helping a lot of that.
What I'm saying is, here's the reality.
Well, again, going to the legislators this year and getting a bridge, we've all said we'll support that, and, the delegation has said they'll put in any kind of legislation we need, and they're researching that right now. But, I agree. There's a bridge that has to happen from the state to make this possible.
Well, if you listen to the Department of Legislative Services, it says there has to be a bridge on all sides. It's not, they said it's not going to be a golden apple. It's going to be totally coming from the state. That's what I was told last week. Okay. So, I mean...
Are they taking into the fact that golden apple that, again, Kent County has already done for the last several years by keeping with their system, their maintenance effort system, that we've kept you harmless in that aspect? I mean, are they even taking that into account at this point yet?
Well, I think that's a long discussion. They have all the data. They certainly, they're the ones that put the data that you all use, that I use. That's that whole booklet of where we are in the ranking, and they're...
Don't we fund at a higher percentage than most other counties?
Yes.
Right. So, it seems to me that it's...
Well, we're the same as Montgomery County about. There are some counties that...
Montgomery County, like the wealthiest county in the state.
Right. What I'm saying, we're at the 4th highest. We're the 5th highest in terms of money that's funded locally, and we're the 4th highest in poverty. So that's why I'm saying we've got this three whammy that's going on. We're losing the most. We are the highest loss of students of any county as well. So we've got the largest percentage of loss of students. So there's a dynamic going there. We've got high poverty, and we're considered a wealthy county. Now, it's based on property values. We can all discuss about that, and we've got a small population. So it's all of these things that it feels so much like I don't have the answers.
I would like that you said you started the process to figure out, and I asked this last year, where are those students, what is driven, because you have a better perspective on that and can ask on it out as a child's leaving. I mean, you really could sit there and ask, oh, what's going on here, parents? I mean, and take that data, and that helps us too as well, help across the board.
Right.
So, I mean, I think there's a lot here to do.
In respect to your point, President Pickler, about how you spend your money, you spend the money, and it's up to you how to spend it. I can tell you, being in my middle of my 4-year term on the board, that the system, meaning Dr. Couch, down through the system, administrators, I mean, everyone has looked at every potential rabbit hole to cut costs and be a bare minimum, in my humble opinion. So when we look at this and we continue to start the process again, based on my experience in the system, I can tell you that we're not going to wait until April 1st to start the process. I mean, the process has begun already with looking at these numbers, and they're going to pull that information, call that information out to help us better understand what's going on. But then we're going to continue to look, and to my comment earlier about finding those areas of need. And I will just say that from my point of view, it's all about moving forward. I can't go backwards to affect anything.
No.
Right. And it's not going to help us. It's gone. I mean, certainly with other boards, other folks that have been in the decision-making process, we're past it. And it's all about what we're going to do moving forward.
Right.
And so, that's right. So now we just have to look at what's real, look at the numbers. I can tell you that it's bare. I mean, what we look at.
And see, that's my point of conversation tonight.
The next level, where is it CTE? Is it half of the sports at the high school? It could be anything.
Well, it's funny because I had somebody the other night saying, we're never going to have a good football team unless we bring JV football back, But then, money, the number of kids, it's still.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
exactly. I said, how many kids need to be on a football team?
Here's the interesting thing, and this was asked, Department of Legislative Service asked me this too, because that's part of the Kerwin Commission. How do you fund a lot of these ideas, and do we cut down in number of administrators at the board office? And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So I said, okay, let's look at that. And I compared with Garrett and Somerset, just because I wanted to see. And all I did was count the number of secretarial and administrators. I didn't even want to try to say, why do you have this? Just look at the people. Look at the number of people. In Somerset County, 46 people are in central office. In Garrett County, 52 people. In Kent County, 25. So what I would say is we are doing a lot with very little people, and we are working really, really hard. And so when I showed the percentage to Senator Penske, I said, how can you expect Kent County to cut more? And he said, well, you're obviously an anomaly. We're not going to make you cut more. But I think that helped me look at that and say, look, I'm doing facilities. I started listing all the things I'm doing. And it's just, it becomes...
Some aspect, when you do a comparison like that, you may come to the realization that you're understaffed.
That's right. And I think that's what we're again, but then you have to add all of that up in the greater scheme of things.
That's an overhead cost, et cetera.
But
I'm not saying that your job is simple. And if we are on this side, fortunately, I guess maybe the ones who created our system here in the state of Maryland left it to the point where you have an elected board of education that have certain legal responsibility, as well as county commissions have certain legal responsibilities. And there's actually simplistically, the only overlap that happens being money. We don't, with this desk, we don't concern about, we do not, we ask questions, which we do as any other citizen should, but we don't have that responsibility of making those decisions that you have to make. And yes,
and they're hard ones.
Oh yeah, they are. Ours are easy. Aren't easy either, but one of the things that asked Shelley about before is that at the beginning of the fiscal year, or the end of the last fiscal year, I expected to see your budget for approval, and I did not see that.
Right. We're coming at the next, at your next commissioners meeting. We're going to present our audited financials, our final budget. We just finished negotiating with we had to go back and renegotiate with all of our, with our bargaining units. So we've completed that. We'll be able to bring all of the budget adjustments, which we will present to the board. They just approved it at our last board meeting, so they'll approve those budget adjustments. That will be added into our final budget, and we'll bring it forward. I know that when Ms. Heller was absent that one time and Ms. Merritt was up there, we were prepared. We said, do you want us to present it now, or do you want us to wait till we're done with approving all of the renegotiating? And I thought I heard you say just wait and bring it all at one time. So we're prepared. We finished our audited financials.
Anxiously awaiting.
Yep, and we'll bring all of that to you at the next meeting on October the 16th.
And I very much appreciate the conversation tonight. It was a good one.
Yep.
Good for the citizenry to see
Right.
and hear.
Right. And I can assure you, I'm trying every possible angle to see if we can't get some help to Kent County. I'm not just putting all my eggs in one basket.
We don't want you to feel or get the impression that we feel as though the school board or you are not doing all the think you need to do.
Right.
It's just that, we have fiduciary responsibility. That's how we ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
They're not making accusations at all.
So.
And I think your plan here for this
CIP?
CIP, yes. CIP, if you agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Move forward.
Thank you.
Right.
And I'll keep you posted on the school safety grant program.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hey. Another vacation. Okay. HR? Marty Hale.
I think you're enjoying that gavel way too much.
That was hand sanitizer, not sweat.
Oh.
Whoa, don't be touching my hand sanitizer.
All right, thank you. First, I'm here for approval to hire a recommended applicant as a part-time facility monitor for the Smart Start Sports Program at the rate indicated. This is part of the seasonal hiring for the school year. The individual recommended was part of improving that program when she worked for us in the past, so we're requesting approval for that.
Second, properly moved and second to hire the individual recommended for seasonal facility staff in the Parks and Recreation Department as requested pending successful completion of county pre-employment requirements. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion's carried unanimously.
Okay, and next we're here to seeking approval to hire a full-time facility monitor in the Parks and Rec Department at the listed salary. The vacancy was due to resignation. The position was advertised internally, resulting in 3 applicants, of which all 3 met the minimum requirements. Interviews were conducted by Myra Butler, Jill Coleman, and myself on September 13. Weighing the interviews and experience and everything, we're making the recommendation or seeking approval to make a recommendation.
So moved.
Second, properly moved and second to change the status of an individual from part-time to full-time for the vacant facility monitor position in the Parks and Recreation Department as requested. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's all I have unless there's anything else.
Oh, thank you. Break it?
No, the battery went dead. Long meeting.
Oh, that was your turn.
Okay, I'm going to keep it short and sweet tonight, like Marty did, since that's the only part of our meeting that's been short and sweet. So I have two items for you, one for discussion and action, and one is simply a report out. The first is a recommendation for a nomination for a new health officer for Kent County Department of Health. It has been a several-month-long process, an extensive search after many interviews with local interviewers as well as State Department representatives. There is a recommended nomination to move forward for final approval with the state.
So moved.
It's been properly moved in second to recommend to the state a new health officer for Kent County. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. We will execute the letter accordingly.
Thank you. And the final thing that I have for you this evening is a letter from Tim Schrumbauer, who is the Chester River Keeper of Shore Rivers Incorporated. And he, on September 19th, submitted a letter to you expressing his concerns about habitat and critical area management.
Okay.
Available for your viewing pleasure.
Good. Do you have anything?
No, I think
Closed session has been canceled. We have no need for a closed session.
I have nothing. Mr. Bob Payne, what did you say?
You're good? You have nothing?
You want to discuss anything?
You signed up for public comment?